Hey, this is Antonio. Welcome back to my channel. Let's have some fighting words. But before we go any further, you know the routine. I need you to like, share, and also subscribe. So in this video, I want to talk about what happened after the fight with Chris Eubank Jr. and Liam Williams. So after the fight, apparently Conor Benn, son of boxing legend Nigel Benn, said in a tweet, "I fancy my chances against Chris Eubank." He wasn't really that impressed with what he saw against Liam Williams. And I also want to take this time in this video to apologize to Chris Eubank, because apparently he really hurt his hand in the fight. I was trying to figure out why his hand was down. Why, I know you hang out with Roy Jones now, and I know you train with Roy Jones. Maybe the reason why your hands are down is because you got that Roy Jones confidence. And he was doing a lot of Roy Jones-like movements and feints. So I was thinking that's one of the reasons why his hands were like completely down. Come to find out after the fight that he really messed his hand up. So he didn't really want to use it that much, which is another reason why he didn't get any more knockdowns really after the fourth round. But that's neither here nor there. Now I want to talk about Conor Benn. So like I said, he tweets out, "Well, I fancy my chances against Chris Eubank. If that's what he has, I don't see anything that's going to be a problem for me. And, we can meet at a catch weight." Chris Eubank, he's at, I believe, 160. Conor Benn, he's at 147. There's a bit of and there's no way Chris Eubank can go down. I don't believe Chris Eubank can make 154. He's as ripped and as lean as possible. So to get Chris Eubank down any further would be jeopardizing his health. In which case, now it all relies on Conor Benn. It relies on him anyway. He's the one who said all these things. He's the one who pointed it out and said, "Hey, I believe I can beat this guy." So now the ball's in your court. What do you want to do? Do you really want to take this? You really want this opportunity? Do you really want to go down this road? I personally think it would be an amazing fight. Chris Eubank, the son of boxing legend Chris Eubank Sr., Conor Benn, son of boxing legend Nigel Benn. And the thing is, Conor Benn is a better version of his dad. And Chris Eubank, I don't think he's as skilled as his dad, but he has a lot of his dad's attributes, like his toughness, his chin, he has a lot of his attributes. Also his athleticism, he has a lot of his attributes, his speed. But on top of that, Chris Eubank Jr. is a lot like his dad in mannerism. Like, he looks a lot like him, but his mannerisms and his overall aura and, I don't want to say his stage presence, but, him just being the villain all the time. He's so much like his dad. And then you get Conor Benn, who's a lot like his dad. He's a no-nonsense, straight shooter, tell it like it is type of guy. And he doesn't like all the, the stuff that guys like Chris Eubank Sr. or Jr. does. So it's funny because, here we are years later, and now the sons are professional fighters, and they're at the top of their game. But on top of that, they're talking about fighting each other. Now, granted, there are other Eubanks out there, who do fight, including another son of Chris Eubank Sr. And however, he looks like exactly like his dad, but I don't feel like he has the skill of Chris Eubank Jr. He does not have the skill. And that's due to the fact that he came to the sport like extremely late. I believe he was in his 20s when he came to the sport. So the likelihood of that happening, and not to mention, he doesn't have half the notoriety or the fan base that Chris Eubank Jr. has. So in order for this to work, you need two guys who have a fan base. And, you already have the fan base of just their dads. But now you have the fan base of them and their dads. So it would be exciting. I personally don't see any way, unless, this fight were to draw out. Because Chris Eubank Jr. said, I could see this down the line. And he said he even admitted, he said this would be an amazing fight. It would be everything, fan pleasing, financially pleasing. I mean, a lot of, and honestly, like the stars and the planets coming back aligned, and now you had the fathers, now you got their sons, and the feud continues. So it's kind of cool for those purposes, which are the best purposes. However, Chris was like, well, I don't know how likely that is. I'm in a different stage in my career than he is in his. I'm established in my career, as opposed to Conor, who's trying to still cement his name. He hasn't fought the big names yet. He hasn't been on the biggest stages. He hasn't really made his bones even in America. So he's just like, we're not in the same place in terms of our careers. Not to mention, I'm a lot bigger than him. So, is he going to fill out some more? Is he going to go lift some weights and then we can do this in like a year or two or something? Like, what are your plans? What are your thoughts? It's one thing to tweet it out to the world, but outside of that, what are your next steps? I personally think this would be an amazing fight, but I think Chris Eubank Jr. would wash Conor Benn, and I am like a really big supporter of Conor Benn. I like him. I like his personality. I like his style. I like the way he fights. I just like the guy. He's, in my personal opinion, he's kind of hard not to like. And again, he reminds me a lot of his dad. But I still think in a boxing match, Chris Eubank Jr. washes the floor with him. Chris Eubank Jr., although Conor Benn is in a smaller weight class, I think Chris Eubank Jr. is faster than him. Chris Eubank Jr. definitely hits harder than him. And Chris Eubank Jr. definitely has a better chin than Conor Benn. So that's three things right there why he would win that fight. Not to mention, he's been there with tougher competition. Chris Eubank Jr. has been beaten, but he's never been beaten up. He's just been embarrassed. Like the Billy Joe Saunders fight, that was just kind of like more of an embarrassment of anything else. So I don't see any way possible. I don't even care if they were to meet at a catch weight. Like, let's just say they both met at 154 pounds. I don't see any way, shape, or form possible where Conor Benn would have an advantage over Chris Eubank Jr. Like, there would be none. Like, there's nothing that I can think of. Even when you look at the corner, he's got Roy Jones Jr. in his corner. Like, come on, a living boxing legend, like a living legend in his corner, helping him. And there's just no way. Like I said, I would love to see it. I'd be the first one to sign up for it and, subscribe to it and everything. But it would clearly just be a financial gain, because I don't see any way possible for Conor Benn to have any advantages whatsoever. I just think Chris Eubank Jr. is on another level. Not to mention, now that he's with Roy Jones, I like the way he's moving. He's a lot more slick. Before, he was relying on the fact that he was a durable guy. And, he had a few, but now, he's slipping all over the place. Like, it's really kind of hard to touch him. So, and you can touch Conor Benn. He's not hard to find because he's right there. He's got a little bit of head slipping, but he doesn't move his legs that much. I just don't see why Chris Eubank Jr. would not run him over. That's all I got to say. But ending on a light note, that does not mean I would not love to see this fight, because I know what it would bring in terms of the promotion. There's no way you could tell me that the dads wouldn't be there, where you could get a little back and forth with the dads. And Conor Benn has already had some words with Chris Eubank Sr. Before at a press conference while his son, Chris Eubank Jr., was there. And it was something along the lines of, Chris Eubank Sr. didn't like the way that Conor was like conducting himself or something like that, or he felt like, matter of fact, he felt like Conor's father should be guiding him through his career, and he shouldn't be doing it alone. And Conor was just like, no, 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 no. You don't know me. You don't know anything about me. You know nothing about me. And which Chris Eubank Jr. didn't say anything. He's like, whatever. I don't really care. Like, my dad can take care of himself. I don't really care. But he was there. So it wouldn't be the first time that they had gotten into it. And I know if just bringing the dads into this, that would be a very, very fun promotion. I mean, people might just tune in for the promotion alone. Just having Nigel Benn and Chris Eubank go at it and then have their sons actually fight after they've gone at it. So it would kind of like put a stamp on the final, all right, you won, or your side won, or something like that. But overall, I'm excited, at least that the conversation has gotten started, because I've been thinking about this fight for at least 3 years. I'm like, man, I would love to see those two fight. I would love to see those two continue on the feud. And here we are. Now, listen, the ball has started rolling. So let's see what happens. Maybe this could be the next big UK fight. I mean, we have Amir Khan and Kell Brook, which is a huge grudge match. What could overpower that in terms of a grudge match? Conor Benn and Chris Eubank Jr. That's what could overpower that. But I want to know your thoughts. Drop them down below. As always, please like, please share, and please subscribe.